Welcome to the Grange podcast, where we strive to rekindle the spirit of community and belonging. Our mission is simple, yet profound, to foster transparent communication and share valuable information that brings us closer together. Join us as we explore stories, insights, and conversations with the intent of building a stronger, more connected community, one episode at a time. Today, my guest is Tiana Wild. Tiana is a mother, wife, race car driver, and owner of Wicked Wild Designs in Colville. During our conversation, Tiana discusses her early life, the challenges of balancing work and personal aspirations, and her passion for racing, which began at a young age. Tiana reflects on her experiences in the racing community, the importance of independence, the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, and lessons learned along the way. Her story is one of determination and resilience. If you need a business logo, indoor or outdoor signage, vinyl wraps, stickers, decals, and custom apparel, make sure to stop by Wicked Wild Designs at 509 South Main Street in Colville, Washington. Wanted to take a quick minute before we dive into the episode and share what is exciting information to me. I had Ashley Pratt, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago, reach out to me last month and let me know that they had a new family join the Kettle River Grange after listening to Ashley and I's podcast. And I just thought that was a really awesome full circle moment. Ashley was excited, as was I, and it's cool to see this little small platform that we're all building together have some, what I would say, success and spreading the good word. A week after she told me about that, she also informed me that we had a local business reach out to her and ask if they needed any supplies donated for a revamp project. And she shot him a list and no questions asked, got some supplies donated to help refurbish the Kettle River Grange. So thank you so much to that business. Thank you for Ashley still for all of your continued and tireless work. And thank you to the community and to the listeners of this podcast for spreading the good word and actually being involved and doing your part to make a difference. I can't tell you how awesome that feels. Yeah, so grateful for that. And then also excited. I got some cool guests lined up. I think you guys are going to really enjoy the next few episodes and looking forward to interviewing more people. So remember, if you or anyone would be interested in coming on, you can reach out to thegrangepodcast at gmail.com. If you find value in our conversation, please help spread the word by sharing this podcast with a friend. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button to be notified when a new episode is released. Thanks for tuning in. Now, here's my conversation with Tiana Wild. All right, and we are live with Tiana Wild. Tiana, welcome to the Grange.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're finally doing this. I feel like we've been talking about it for a few months.
Pretty much since I feel like you had the idea.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to start a podcast, but I just haven't pulled the trigger. So this is actually perfect. Kind of see how it's done.
Do you think you'll do it?
I don't know. Maybe someday. I would love to, but it just time constraints, trying to run the business and everything. I feel like it would be really exciting and something that I could do for myself, though. So I don't know. Maybe I can make some time. I just also don't know what it would even be about.
Yeah.
I just like to talk.
For sure.
So I feel like that would work out well.
Yeah. So I guess little context, you helped, I guess we really started, I've known your family forever. Maybe not forever, but I've known your dad for a long time. I actually started hanging with your brother a little bit when he was still in high school.
I remember that. I remember him talking about hanging out with you, actually.
Yeah, he was running around with the Walker boys, snowmobiling.
Yep.
And then they were always on their BMX bikes at the skate park. And when I was living in the shop, they'd actually swing by on their bikes.
They would.
Yeah.
Little heathens.
And then kind of a funny side note, I think the first time, because I didn't know Chase had a sister. It's not, we didn't like hang out that much or whatever.
Right.
And I don't know if you would remember this or not, but this is like 10 years ago probably. And my buddy Casey McKern, him and I and my other buddy Justin Ostler were heading to Republic.
Yep. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. And we were heading to Republic kind of just for a screw off day. And I was driving Casey's van.
Yep.
And we hit a bear.
Yep. I definitely remember that. I couldn't remember who all was there. And I think you were the only person I didn't actually know personally. But yeah, I definitely remember that.
And so, dude, I'm driving along, going like 55, and Casey's like, whoa, whoa. And I look over and there's a bear running at us, and I hit it in his van. And we drive over it. It was like probably a year-old bear. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I just hit a bear. I mean, I've seen like 3 bears in my life, and I just hit one in his van. And we get out, and the thing is laying there, laid out. And me and Ostler are like still terrified. And Casey goes up to it and starts bumping into it.
Oh my gosh.
And it wakes up and stumbles off. It was the craziest thing. But the bumper was pushed up into his fender flare, and on the tire we had no tools. We were dorks back then. And you guys come rolling by with your race car trailer and set up. Your dad pops out and he's like, is everything okay? And I think we ended up using a Sawzall to cut his bumper off.
Something. I remember stopping for a little while, and that's like the kind of story, like, you really can't make that shit up.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You would never believe that would happen. Yeah, I totally remember that, actually, vividly, because I've told people that story before.
Yeah, we were there for probably 30, 45 minutes, and then you guys pulled over, and thank God had a Sawzall on you. And
yeah, all sorts of random stuff going to the track. You never know what kind of body work you're going to have to do that day. So
for sure.
Yeah, that's funny.
But that was kind of, I remember talking to your dad, and he said, yeah, daughter Tiana's racing Republic and whatever. But then I think, the first time that we, created a friendship or whatever was through business, and you helped me design logos.
Yeah,
probably.
I think so. I don't have any recollection of meeting you, just hearing stories from my dad or my brother. I dealt with your dad quite a few times at the print shop when I worked there.
Yeah.
And that was always a pleasure. He's so cool. But yeah, I think so. I think the first time that we actually met and had a discussion was in my shop, and it was the Columbia Nav logo.
For sure.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, my daughter has drawn both my logos for my tugboat business and then also for this podcast, and literally gave Tiana a napkin drawing of what Kendall had drawn, and then she perfected it. So like the Grange podcast logo is Tiana. So huge thank you. Like, it's been so cool to have a logo. I didn't realize how big a deal that was. I hired a guy 2 years ago, and during the interview process, I talked about kind of this metaphor of like, I'm looking to hire someone that will wear my hat, like a company guy,
for sure.
And so we finished the interview, and he's like, well, I got one last question. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, when do I get my hat? And I was like, actually, I don't have any hats. I don't even have a logo.
That was metaphorical.
Yeah. So I really appreciate your help. I mean, it's been awesome. Sweatshirts and hats and stickers, and like having a logo has been huge. You just did those decals that I'm going to get out in front of the shop.
Yeah, I can't wait to see
those
how
turned
those
out
turn
so
out.
good. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been so fun. I like working on different things all the time. That's probably one of my favorite parts of my job. And like, branding packages are my absolute favorite thing to do. Like, seeing a business, start with a logo and then business cards and then shirts, just all the things. Like, now storefronts have become kind of something that I do a lot more of. And I love that. It's just so fun to pull a bunch of pieces together and then watch it like come to life.
I bet.
So yeah, I appreciate you working with us. It's a lot of fun. I always like the projects you bring in, and I'm excited to see the boat stickers too.
Yeah. I think they're going to turn, we haven't got them on yet, but I'm hoping this week, and I think they're going to look really good.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
But like I do with everyone, I want to bring it back, talk kind of early life, childhood. I'd like to get into some racing, and then obviously just talk about your business and that journey. But grew up in Kettle Falls, right?
Yep. I was born in Colville, and I went to school in Kettle until sixth grade, I think. Yeah, sixth grade was the last year. So basically spent half of my school life here, half of it in Colville. And I had a ton of fun. I just started to turn into a little bit of a troublemaker.
Okay.
And my parents were kind of like, okay, I think we need to get her out of here. And so I got a fresh start, seventh grade, and I knew quite a few people in Colville already. I had some cousins there, and my brother had wrestled for Colville for a couple of years, or maybe it was only one. So it was a really good move. Plus my parents were working in Colville at the time. And so, it was easier if we needed anything for them to just be able to pop right up to the schools. So that was really good. But I was able to kind of keep some of my friendships that I built from preschool on up. And I have a ton of fond memories here. I think the schools are great. Yeah. So I transferred to Colville. I finished high school there, but I actually graduated a year early.
Okay.
So between my sophomore and senior year, I did my junior year in about 3 months, I guess. I started right at the end of the school year and did all of my courses online. So I pretty much just didn't have a summer that year. I was just nose to the grind trying to get everything done. And I wanted to grow up as fast as possible. And now I look back and I'm like, my dad was right. I don't know why I would want to do that, but it was really good. It took a lot of discipline, but I kind of prided myself in that. Like I was excited to try and achieve something that a lot of people said, oh, I don't know if you can do that. That's a lot of work. And it totally paid off. By the time I was 17, I had like a stable job and moved out, got my own apartment, and just kind of started doing the thing. And I don't know, ever since then, I've just been working. And
so where's the independent woman thing come from? Like, I get that vibe from you, you know.
I honestly don't know.
I mean, has it been there since you were a child?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just,
yep.
I can do this on my own 2 feet. And
yeah, I was pretty bossy when I was in my younger years, probably toddler age. I probably started out around then. Then I had a little brother that I could boss around, and I could get him to do damn near anything I wanted for a really long time. He would kill me for saying this on a podcast, but I remember being like, gosh, I started traveling when I was maybe 18 for racing, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And around that time, I could still convince him to tie my race shoes for me. And he would be so mad every time I asked, but like, he would still do it. Now, to this day, he would definitely not agree to that. And like I said, probably won't be thrilled that I'm saying that publicly, but I don't know. My mom's a really hard worker. My aunt's a really hard worker. My dad too, of course, but I just kind of watched them take charge of things.
Okay.
And I guess that's what inspired me a little bit. But I think it's just something that I've kind of always had. I don't know why. Yep. There's no real rhyme or reason. But yeah, I do feel like I have a little bit of that vibe.
I dig it. Looking back, was it cool to be able to kind of see both sides of the fence with the Kettle Colville thing? Like, are you thankful for that now in your adulthood that you got to participate in 2 different schools?
Absolutely. I never really understood, like, there was always that rivalry, you know, and I don't know if it still exists, but
I don't think it's like it was a while back.
It was pretty like brutal. People really did not like Kettle or really did not like Colville, and you would just hear kids trashing the other when in reality we're all human.
For sure.
And I kind of always had that outlook, like no matter what situation I was faced with, I've always been a talker. I've always been kind of not necessarily a people pleaser, but like a people person. And so I just enjoyed being friends with people from everywhere. It didn't
all
matter,
walks of life.
Yeah, it didn't matter where they were from or where they went to school or grew up or whatever the case may be. But it was nice to be able to be friends with people from both places and just see the differences, and maybe try to, like, you know, tell people it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I had a similar experience of, I transferred out going into my junior year to Reardon. And so I was there, and then my brother actually went to Colville. And so I actually got to immerse myself in 3 different schools. And it was awesome. I mean, when I left Kettle, it was hard because all my best friends, I was 16 years old.
Oh yeah.
My girlfriend at the time was here. Like it was a tough transition, but then I got to go and meet all new people. And then through my brother, meet Colville people. Because we at the time prior to that, we were still actually playing Colville in sports, and I think that was some of it. It was the rivalry part of it, where we don't do that anymore. But once my brother got there, and then I met, to your point, it was like, yeah, we're all the same, cut from the same cloth here,
Right, and in the Tri-County area, I feel like everybody is raised pretty similar,
for sure.
And a lot of people who have kids that go to Kettle. Maybe they went to Colville or vice versa, or Republic or Northport or anything like that. Everybody's kind of in the same community, even though they don't necessarily view it that way.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that thoroughly, honestly, just to know people everywhere. And I've continued that, like in my adult life. I know people from all over the United States at this point, and
it's
I like
a ton
that.
of fun.
I like meeting different people and seeing different things. So I think it's really interesting and really cool. Actually, a lot of people that I went to school with in Kettle ended up eventually transferring to Colville around high school. I'm not sure what the reasoning was for that, but there were a lot of people that I wouldn't have expected that actually made that transfer too.
For sure. When do you remember, what was your first job? When did you start working?
I started working when I was a sophomore, and it was for my mom.
Okay.
I was doing like small office duties, answering the phone, cleaning. She taught me how to do some of her job filing. So you would just like get on the computer, look at a job number, make sure all the information matched the job ticket, and then file it away. Pretty simple stuff.
How long has your mom owned that business?
She, I believe, took it back. So going back in time a little bit, her parents started that business as Masters Printing, and they moved when my mom was 11 from Renton to Kettle Falls and built the house that my parents actually live in now. My grandpa passed away in 2006, so they had started selling it to somebody, and that didn't work out. So my mom got the business back, but ended up having to change the name of it and pretty much start from ground zero.
Was Masters a franchise?
No. They started, my grandpa started that.
Okay.
As far as I know anyways.
Yeah.
But he had printing experience from working in Renton and the Seattle area and stuff. I believe that's what he did before they moved anyways. So she took that back in, I want to say it was 2008 or 9. I'm not exactly sure, but somewhere in that timeline, I believe. And then just kind of built it back to what it is now. And so she trained me to do all of that stuff. And I had been taking some like multimedia class in high school. And I always thought that I wanted to be like an ultrasound technician or maybe something in the medical industry. But I was working there and taking that class, and one of her employees was like having a lot of trouble with this logo she was designing. And it's funny, back to logos. She asked just for some younger eyes, take a look at this. You've been learning, maybe see what you can do. This is what they want. And the people absolutely loved it. They ended up using both variations of what I set up. And so at 15 or 16 years old, I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and kind of shifted gears a little bit, as far as my mindset went. I thought, well, maybe like this is something that I want to do, but I never would have thought that I would want to. I kind of wanted to get out of Colville. But then by the time, I was working with her and kind of decided, I think I might like this, I just completely was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it just kind of took off from there. I did get a different job after moving away. So I worked for her from 2011 or 12, whatever year. I think it was my sophomore year. So it must have been 12, until I moved to Central Oregon later on. And
so did you graduate essentially like at 17?
Yes.
And so you didn't do any of your senior year?
Nope. But my senior year was technically when I was 17. Yeah, it would have been my junior.
Okay. And so then after you're actually done with school, do you stick around after that, or is that when you moved to Oregon?
Yep, I stuck around. So I graduated in 2014.
Okay.
And then I didn't move until 2017. So I worked with her
and then
the
that
whole time.
3-year gap, you're working the family business with your mom?
Yep.
Okay.
And after I moved, I had gotten a coffee shop job, and I was looking forward to, just like we talked about, meeting new people, kind of starting this different life. I just wanted to see what it would be like. And I found out really quick that I didn't like being bossed around or having the bad shifts. Like, I would be scheduled to work holidays and weekends and all of this stuff that I never really had to do before. And so I did that for a little while. I ended up working at another coffee shop briefly. But while I did those jobs, I did like design work for my mom just on the side.
Gotcha.
And so eventually I just quit the other jobs, worked for her, did her design stuff that she needed me to do. And my husband's daughter was 9 months old, I want to say, when we got together. And so within a few months of living in Central Oregon, I ended up having her pretty much full time. Instead of her mom having her go to daycare or whatever, she would be home with me. So I was just kind of a stay-at-home mom, working a little bit on the side and just taking care of the house, taking care of things like that, which also was not at all what I expected to be doing at 20 years old.
For sure. How'd you end up in Oregon?
Actually, because of my husband. Well,
Okay.
He was my boyfriend then, but we met racing in 2016. And then we both got out of relationships about a year after we met each other. And we started dating in like April or something of 2017. And I knew with all the commuting and stuff back and forth that it probably wasn't going to last the winter if I didn't make the decision to move. And I was kind of at a point in my life where I thought, oh, it's a good time to try something new. If it doesn't work out, we'll just see what happens. But so I moved down there, and I didn't really like it, to be honest. I missed home pretty much right away. I want to say after about 3 months of living there, I was ready to come back. I just didn't like the people. The area wasn't as pretty as the area that we live now. And I was ready to be home, but I toughed it out.
Do you feel that you had to leave, though, to really appreciate what we have here?
I don't know. Sometimes I think yes, but also at the time, I wasn't like looking to leave. I loved where I was at. I just knew that to be with him, that I was going to have to.
Okay.
And so I made that work.
Yeah. I was a little opposite of, I felt when I was like 18, I needed to go see something different, and I actually had some plans fall through. I thought I was going to go to WSU and I ended up not getting accepted. So I spent my first year at the community college in Spokane, which was not what I was looking to go explore in the world, was Spokane. But then I ended up getting accepted to a college in Montana, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it was cool to stretch my feet, 7 hours from home. Montana was beautiful. And then I went to Colorado after I graduated and worked as a snowmobile guide in the winter, because it took me 4.5 years. Some of my stuff from the community college didn't transfer.
Oh, yeah.
So I graduated in December and then drove to Colorado the next day, worked as a sled guide in this whole new, it sounds worse than it is, but I lived in a barn in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I got the job without housing and then went on Craigslist, and this family was renting out. They lived in a barn. So the stable was the base floor and then they lived above it. And it was $500 a month and everything else there was $1,000. And I thought, well, whatever. Like, I just got out of college living with 6 other dudes. Like, I can live in a barn. And I showed up and it was a beautiful barn, like really nice. But my room was on the base floor next to the horse stalls. Like, and the horses were outside. Like, if I kept my window cracked in the spring, they'd stick their heads through the deal. I remember my brother showed up. He's like, dude, this is legit funny farm.
What are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. But it was awesome. Living in a tourist town was completely different. Every night was a Friday night. We had 10,000 people come into town weekly. So it was a huge rotation. And then working a service industry job, I got to meet all sorts of different people. And then after that, I worked for a snowmobile company where we did the trade show circuit all across the U.S. And I had never been east of Montana until that time. And so we went as far east as Maine and north to Toronto, and then, west to Edmonton. And I got to see the countryside for the first time, and it was all great. Like I got to go to Chicago and Detroit, Michigan, and all these different areas. And it really, after all that though, I was like, man, we have it good back home, And I always loved living here. I just felt like I needed to stretch my feet a little bit. So it took me leaving to then want to like come back and appreciate it, and not feel stuck as much.
I think a lot of people do that. I think it's a good thing to get away just so you know what's out there, but also to appreciate where we're at. And it seems like a vast majority of the people who grew up here might leave, but almost always return because you go out and you see that we just have it good. It's a beautiful place to live. The community is amazing. It's a really good place to raise your kids, and knowing the people that your kids are going to school with is so huge. That's one thing that I was very nervous about living in Central Oregon, and I kind of just had to put my foot down and say, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can send my kid to school here. I want to know the teachers or the parents, like just to feel like I did growing up, because we had such a strong community. And that was really important for me and for my son's upbringing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you say that you met your husband racing. So let's get into the racing chapter of Tiana's life a little bit. I did do a little research the last couple days online because I've never, and I feel guilty admitting this to you, but I've never been to a Northport or Republic race, and I feel like I need to do that. I have guilt saying that I've never been.
Right, because you're close to.
Yeah, there's no reason why I have not been.
Some people just haven't experienced it. So yeah, I started racing in 2011, I believe. I was 14, and I just really wanted to give it a try. My dad raced while I was growing up, so we spent a lot of our weekends up at the racetrack, and he really doubted me. He was kind of like, oh, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't really think you're going to like it. It's not that much fun. It's a lot of work. So I just kept at it. I was very persistent. I went on Craigslist. I was looking at all these race cars, and I finally found one that I convinced him to go get. And he told my mom, because she was also against it. And I was a cheerleader at the time. So of course they were like, this isn't going to play out anyways. Like, she's a cheerleader. She's not a racer. And we got this car. Didn't pay very much for it. He wouldn't even let me like paint it or anything. He was hesitant to even let me put my own number on it. He told my mom, oh, she's going to get a little bit dirty and she's not going to like that. I'm going to make her work on it. Here we are, however many years later, and we're still at it. But we went up there, and I think my first season, I almost won the championship by like 3 points or something. And I think I might have had it if I didn't crash out one of the first races I was out there. But then I raced the little 4-cylinder cars for 2 years, maybe 2 or 3. And then ended up going from that to a modified, which in this area is like the top class, I guess you would say. That might be poor word choice, but so I went from like a 4-cylinder to a modified, and I thought, okay, I made a big mistake. I should have just stayed where I was at, but I just kind of wanted to try something new. And my dad didn't want me to go racing with the other class. He was like, oh, it's too rough, whatever. Well, we raced for another couple of seasons around home, and then decided that it would be fun to go and like check out other racetracks around the state. So we started doing that in 2016. We joined this touring division called the Washington Modified Tour. And we showed up with this older car that was fairly nice for around this area. A lot of the modifieds in this area were old pavement cars that people would just like set up differently and go race them on the dirt. And we bought this car that was actually out of Oregon, which is kind of funny. I'll circle back to that. But we picked it up in Oregon, fixed it up, got it ready to come racing up here, then decided to take off traveling and realized we were a very small fish in a very big pond. And we pretty quickly realized that we needed to upgrade. So we ended up getting a different car the next season, and I raced that for a little while. But during my first season is when I met my husband, and we were just kind of friends. His uncle was racing. They would travel together and go racing together, and they would randomly tag each other, or his uncle would tag him on my racing page on my posts. And I was so confused. I just thought they were like talking bad about me, making fun of me, something like that.
Yeah.
Apparently that wasn't the case. And his uncle just knew like, oh, he's got a crush on you and stuff like that. But yeah, so we met doing that. We raced side by side for years. And then I think there was only 1 year actually that we were in different classes. So fast forward a little bit, in 2022, I decided to try stock car racing, which is just a different kind of car, different kind of chassis. The rules are a little bit different. They look different. My brother had been racing in that class, and my dad was like, I really think you would like this class. I think you should try it. It's not as much work as a modified because there's a lot of components on the modifieds. So it's a lot of maintenance every week and just takes a lot of extra time and attention. And at that point, I didn't really have the extra time or attention to spend. So we ended up getting stock cars. I got one, really liked it after a couple races out. And then my husband decided he didn't want to race modifieds anymore either. And he wanted to get a stock car. So here we are a few years later. And yeah, we're still doing it. It's been awesome. We do a lot of traveling. We've gone to a ton of different racetracks now, met a lot of really cool people along the way. And we kind of just pick bigger shows where we can go and be gone for a week because it's a long way to travel to any of the tracks that we want to go and race at because we don't really race locally. Neither Northport or Republic has a class for our cars.
Okay.
So yeah, we have to travel. I think the closest one's about 7 hours.
Wow.
So we do a lot of that to get out there.
So I actually stopped into the shop and talked to your dad this week. And I said, hey, Tiana's coming on, like, what's some stuff I should talk about or whatever. And it's funny because he literally told the same story that you just started with about your first car. And he was like, she came to me and wanted to race. And he said that he tried to talk you out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, I told my wife, I think she's going to get one, speck of mud on her and she's going to be out. He talked about going and buying the car and he said it didn't even run when he got there. Nope. And he was like, got it running on site. And, he said, well, I got to hear it run before I'm going to actually buy it. And said it was cheap car or whatever.
It was so bad.
Brought it home. And then he was like, basically then the rest was history. But if I understood him correctly, because in that time too, you've taken some time off, right? Like,
yeah, I took about a year off when I had my son. So 2020, I didn't race at all. COVID was happening, so the world was going crazy anyways. But my son was born in May, and I even planned that out. Like, I wanted to just have a baby during off season. If I was going to have a kid, I was going to get it done during this amount of time so that I didn't have to miss any racing. And then once he was here and everything was so crazy, I was like, you know what? It's not really that big of a deal. And so, yeah, I did take a year off.
But your dad, and I don't mean to, I'm not saying this as like an insult or anything, but he basically said that you're like a natural, like even with your time off, he was like, she just came right back and didn't lose a step. And then when you started, he was like, I was so surprised at how good she was. Like, what do you think? Is that a DNA thing where your grandpa raced, your dad raced? Like, how do you at 14 get into a car and not only compete, but win? If I read correctly too on the internet, you were the first woman to win the Republic series or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, the championship.
Yeah. So how do you get behind a wheel and just have success like that?
I'm really not sure because out on like the road, like I'm not a great driver, just in my daily driver. Like I'm not a bad driver, of course, but I don't know. It's really strange because I had no expectations, really. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I think it kind of goes back to how we talked about that, like independence that I have. I just feel like anything that somebody doubts me being able to do, I take that as a challenge and I want to succeed. I'm very competitive And I think that just kind of fueled my fire a little bit. I was like, oh, I want to try this. And they didn't want me to. So I was kind of like, well, I'm going to show them. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do as good as I can. And yeah, it got addicting so fast, though. You get out there and, doing well once, and then it's like, okay, you want to do that every time because it makes it just a little more fun.
Do you practice at all? Like, I mean, before your first race, had you done laps or anything?
Nope. My dad had to teach me how to drive a stick shift, and I cried a lot of times because he was like, well, you have to drive a manual, like your car's manual, you're going to have to figure it out. And he just laughed while I cried trying to figure it out. But other than that, we didn't hit any practices or anything. There was a race, maybe two. I think there was 2 races underway that season when I actually started. And so the other people in the class had at least those 2 races under their belt. And I just went out there and did the best that I could. I don't think I did very good my first time out there. I'm not sure if I can't remember if that's what you said he said, but I just didn't want to test the boundaries too bad. I got a little bit of seat time, got comfortable, and then I don't know. It's hard to even remember that far back because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that I've been even doing it for that long, but.
How much do you attribute, like, your success to, and maybe not just yours, but in racing in general, to like car setup and skill level? Like, could you hop in a car that wasn't as set up as good as yours and still compete at the same level? Or is it like, do you have to have both to be successful?
I would say both for sure. There are people though that can definitely jump in anything and drive it and do well. I would say, I don't know. I would say it was a 50-50, but probably not. It's just depends, I guess, on the racetrack, the track conditions. I don't know. There's so much that goes into it.
Does it get in the weeds? Like, I mean, I was really big into the snowmobile scene for a lot of my life. And, we were running turbos and nitrous. And I mean, we were shimming clutch weights and suspension revalving. I mean, it was every little thing on the snowmobile we had it down to a science.
Right.
Is racing cars the same way? Like, are you swapping out different settings or tire pressures or different things in between races and this and that? Or is it?
Yes and no. Mostly yes. So there are a lot of things that you can change. And I feel like every car needs to be set up to the driver because my driving style versus my brother's driving style or my husband's driving style, completely different. All 3 of us, honestly, drive completely different. And so I feel like there's no golden setup for any person, any car, anything like that. Like you definitely just have to test and tune, kind of see what works for you and the way that you drive. But it also depends on the class that you're running because some of the rule packages are much more tighter rules than like others. So in the modifieds, there were a ton more things that you could change, a lot more components, like I was saying. So of course with other or extra parts, there's extra maintenance. And whereas the class that we're racing in now, the stock cars, it's a pretty tight rule package. So everybody's pretty close, pretty even and keeled. Pretty competitive. Yeah. There are very few things that you could change, to set yourself aside from the next guy. So when that's the case, I feel like it definitely factors into more skill than setup.
Yeah.
But it could definitely just depend on the racetrack conditions. Is the track muddy or is it really slick?
Yep.
Is it rough?
For sure.
Is it smooth? And you can definitely see different drivers shine in different places when the track is a certain way, if the conditions are in their favor or not. So it's a little bit of skill, a little bit of setup, and a lot of luck, honestly. There is so much luck involved because somebody could crash out right in front of you. I was watching a race actually last weekend because when we're not at the track, we're always watching somebody's Facebook Live. And this guy had a brand new car. It hit the track for the very first time, very first race, and a lap or 2 into it, got rolled over and crashed out. And so it was just unfortunate. You never know going out there, if you've got a brand new car, if that's going to be the last time it even sees the racetrack, you might be able to piece it back together. You might not.
Have you had any big crashes?
I have had a few, nothing too serious. When I raced that little 4-cylinder car, I crashed it a couple times pretty good. And in the modified, I feel like I can remember a couple times being kind of bruised up just from the seat belts, but I've never rolled. Hopefully that never happens, because that is one thing that kind of terrifies me. I do hear a lot of people say that once it happens, though, like it's not as bad as it seems, because you're like tight in there. You got a 5-point harness, and you're probably safer on the racetrack than you are on 395 between Colville and Spokane.
For sure.
But I haven't been in anything too serious. I've bent a lot of bumpers and had a lot of body damage over the years, but other than that, made it out mostly unscathed.
How many other women have you competed against?
I mean, a small handful. It's definitely more common now than I feel like it was when I started. And I feel like a lot more people or a lot more women are getting into it now than before. So it's really cool to watch. When we go to the bigger races, like Winter Nationals, for example, that is a 2-week race technically, or it's 2 weeks worth of racing down in Arizona, and you're pulling people from all over the country. I mean, like the best of the best in what we race is IMCA. So it's like a sanctioning body, and that's who makes the rules for the different classes. And there's what we have are stock cars. They've got modifieds, which is what we used to race. There's another car called a sport mod, which is similar to a modified, but the suspension is different. There's like a hobby stock division, and then a 4-cylinder division, maybe a couple others. I think that's it. But when you go to big races like that, you actually see a fair amount of female drivers.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
But primarily you compete against men?
Primarily, yes.
Yeah. How many laps in a normal sanctioned race?
For a feature, it's typically 25.
And what's the time on that? Like how long does it take to put in 25 laps?
Give or take, probably a half hour-ish. Just depends on the racetrack.
For sure.
Same kind of thing. Some of them, like we race a lot in Oregon, and there are a few tracks that are pretty tiny, and then a few tracks that are decent in size. So it just kind of depends on what the lap times are like and stuff. But it's just a coin toss. That race I was telling you about that I was watching, it was a modified race last weekend, and it was a 70-minute feature.
Wow.
It was a disaster. There was so many cautions, and usually I feel like at the first like couple of races, everybody's working out the kinks in their cars. Everybody's antsy and trying to win because they've been off all winter, and things get a little bit chaotic.
Yeah.
But yeah, typically it's not too long. I would say about a half hour.
And then what's like a top speed that you see during a race like that?
I believe that we calculated out at like Yakima at the dirt track there, which doesn't exist anymore. But we did race there quite a bit when we first started racing mods, or when I first started racing mods. I want to say we calculated out at like damn near 90 going into the corners down there. And that was a bigger racetrack. So yeah, you get moving around there pretty good.
And are those cars manual transmissions too?
Yeah, so they are, but like we have these racing transmissions, and so it's backwards. Like you actually push the clutch in to go instead of letting it out. And then once you get it, so you start, in low, and you have to push the clutch in to get going. And then you, like, as you're pulling onto the racetrack, pull it into direct, and yeah, let it out then. It's weird. It's different to get used to.
Yeah. Huh. I gotta watch a race at some point.
Yeah, you should.
Do you guys still go up and watch Northport Republic for fun, or?
We have in the past. We have actually this year quite a few cars that came and got wrapped. And so we would like to go up to Northport and watch, support the people who supported us and kind of see what's happening up there. We haven't been up there for maybe 2 years now, but periodically we'll go and watch races. And up until maybe not last year, but the year before, there was somebody up in Republic trying to bring in more touring divisions. So we actually like got a class of stock cars together to come up and race. And we did that 2 years in a row. Got some of the people that we race with to come up and race up there. And that was cool. A lot of fun. It wasn't huge or anything, but got some money together from some sponsors and kind of drew them in that way. And it was a good time.
That's fun. So I've never been to a race, but I have raced it. One year they did snowmobile races up there.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the guy, I think, that had it at the time who was bringing in some of the bigger touring
It was
series.
Like 13, 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It was kind of it was a different throw together weekend, but it was fun.
Yeah. I think I watched somebody's videos they posted or something of that. But yeah, it's a ton of fun. And the races that we go to now, there's IMCA TV. So you can actually buy like a week's worth or a night's worth or whatever and watch all of the races. So I'll have to hook you up with that link, and maybe one of these times you can see what we got going.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It's cool.
So then now kind of switching paces a little bit, but you are a business owner and you're on Colville Main Street. And so let's dive into that a little bit. How long have you been in business? How'd that journey start? And I want to learn more about that.
Okay. So probably 2022-ish, I think it was. I was kind of a new mom still, or had just had my son, wasn't really a new mom, but I was just looking for something for myself kind of to do. And I thought it would be fun to make cups because for whatever reason, I've just always liked cups. Like since I was a teenager, I was obsessed with getting new ones. So I was thinking, I'll have this side hobby. I will make some cups, sell them for a little extra money. It'll be super fun. And at the same time, my husband actually had been trying to get me to do like race car wrap design for a while. And I did one for him in 2019. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. Took me way too many hours to design. And then we sent it off to be printed and like it didn't even line up where it was supposed to, but people loved it. Like this guy was a photographer at one of the racetracks, wanted to send it into a magazine, all this stuff. And so after we did that one, we had a few people between 19 and 22 or whatever the years were, ask us to do design for them. So we found somebody who would print for us and just kind of dabbled in it briefly. I would just sit around and cuss the whole time I was trying to do a design because it was so frustrating and on such a big scale compared to just doing business cards or wedding invitations or whatever I was used to. So between the two of those things, for some reason that year, things just really took off. Like a lot of people had reached out to us, people that weren't just in our direct friend group. And we decided that instead of having somebody else print, we should buy a printer. So we did, and it was an old jalopy, but it got the job done for as long as we needed it to. We paid to have it freshened up. It would take like an entire day to print the side of a car, whereas now we can print 3 cars in a day easily. Nice. Full cars, not just like the sides. And yeah, things just really took off like right away. We had so much support from our friends and their friends and family members who were, telling their friends about it, and things just got crazy. So we started our business, got licensed and all of that, and worked from our house. Like we turned our house into a business. We had a printer and a laminator in our dining room and still had our table in there, but it was a tight fit. And then moved furniture out of my living room to move like a huge work counter in there, all of my equipment that I needed in there, and essentially just started pumping out jobs like crazy. We would be up until 2 or 3 in the morning, wake up again at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., somewhere in there to do it all over again. My husband still had a full-time job. He was driving a mobile mix truck. So I kind of took care of all of dealing with like the customers and taking in the orders and that stuff. And I was still taking care of the kids, making sure his daughter got to school when, we had her and needed to take her. or pick her up or whatever. And doing some things for my mom. So just trying to balance all that. And then by the time the next year rolled around, we had decided that we wanted to move. And I just kept telling him that I thought there would be a big need for what we could offer in the area. And so I don't think he believed me. And I also don't know if I believed me. I was just like anything to get me out of Central Oregon. I just was at the point where I knew my son was about to start school. I really wanted to be where my friends and family were. And so I just kept convincing him, like, oh, look at how much growth we've experienced in a year. Like if we had a commercial side of things too, and we were selling banners and selling, I just had all of these like small aspirations that maybe we could make it work and maybe it would happen and he wouldn't have to work for somebody. And I hoped for that because I wanted to move so badly. And yeah, things they got crazy really fast. I think we moved, it was about September of 2023. So about a year and a half after we started our business. And I went straight to work, like moved right into the place that we're at now, which my mom owns the building. So she's got the print shop next door to us. And I just carried on, pretty much didn't take a break, like from one location to another, got all my stuff loaded in there. And it was so crazy trying to get the place set up to where there was like a steady flow of production and I wasn't just running from one end of the shop to the other. And it didn't even look like a business for a while. It just looked like a closet, honestly, with a big mess, bunch of stuff shoved in places it didn't belong and things like that. But yeah, it went really crazy. I never had any like big dreams to be a business owner or anything like that. I just was content working for my mom, hoping that like when we moved back like earlier than when we started the business, that I would just go back to work for her and take over that someday. And then things just got out of control. And eventually I kind of stopped doing design work for her and just had to keep picking up and building on what we had going. And yeah, so we're located on Main Street and it's pretty cool because we have a lot of walk-in traffic now and things are going a lot better than I ever really expected them to.
Every time I walk in, it seems like you guys have added something. Like you got the clothes rack now. I mean, it seems like BJ's always back there printing something. Like there's always a stack full of stuff that you guys have just finished for people to pick up. Like, I mean, I don't know what your metrics are, but it seems like you're really experiencing like good growth. It seems like you guys are very busy. Is that appropriate to say that you're having good growth?
Yes, absolutely. Even in the last 6 months, I would say that like the growth has been exponential. I honestly cannot believe how much things have changed in the last 6 months. And I keep on having these ideas of like how to keep progressing and doing better. And it's been awesome, really, because I never thought that I would be in this position that I am now. And we do keep kind of adding things in. Like I'm also just trying to give it a different vibe than what it was when we moved in, because I still walk in and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I think about what it looked like when we just put our equipment in there and it just looked so strange. Like it didn't look professional at all. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to have a professional vibe. When you walked in, like think, oh yeah, these people really have it together. Yeah. When realistically we were just like in the sink or swim mindset at that point. But yeah, we just try and build a little bit and move things around quite a bit. We're still trying to figure out what looks good, what doesn't. I feel like as far as the storefront goes, we're really constantly focused on production and turning things out. I still am trying to figure out how to maintain that professional look in the office.
Have you been able to like catch your breath, for lack of better words? Like, do you feel that you're like in a system where it's manageable, or does it still feel like you guys are just wading in the deep end?
Definitely wading in the deep end. Yeah. Even just since we moved here, like there was a small period of time, it was December of last year, or not December, January of last year. And things slowed down drastically through January and February. And so then I was panicking, of course, because I had gone from like, we moved in September and things just stayed really steadily busy. I had worked with a bunch of smaller local businesses in Central Oregon. And I was nervous about losing their business because that's kind of what was like keeping me going, you know? So then once January and February hit, when it had slowed down, I was definitely nervous. But right after that, it seemed to pick up. And ever since then, I think month to month, it's just grown almost every single month. So I'm so thankful for my customers and the people who continue to come back and support us, because it's really been like a dream come true, even though it wasn't something that I necessarily dreamed of. I feel very fortunate to be in this position.
That's great. Are you doing much advertising, or is a lot of it word of mouth?
Pretty much word of mouth. I have a Facebook page that I'll post on periodically when I think about it, but I have found that like the social media, which could be really huge for advertisement, is really hard to manage on top of the other daily things happening. So it's pretty much been word of mouth. I mean, forever we didn't even have a sign up, I don't think. And the building sits back off the road. So really, if you weren't looking for it, you probably wouldn't really know it was there. And we're kind of planning on trying to transform the storefront to like do something with the windows and get a really nice sign made up, because we have everything that we need to do it. It's just taking the time to actually do it.
So. I feel like there's still this small town marketing thing though, that like you don't read or see on YouTube, you know, when you're looking at business experts. And like, since I wear one of my sweatshirts almost every day with the logo on it and the sweatshirts that you made. And they're like, oh my God, I love that logo. Where'd you get it done? You know? And I'm like, oh, Tiana Wicked Wild Designs did that, you know? And I feel like still in small towns, it's that old school thing of like, I have a guy or a girl that does this, you know, like I get people that call me and I do the same thing when I need a part for an excavator. It's like, I have a guy that I call, and if he doesn't have it, then he knows a guy, you know? And like, same thing here. I had a guy call me last week and he said, hey, I need a logo for something. And I don't know if he's reached out to you yet or not, but I said, oh, I have a gal that does that, you know, like,
that's awesome.
And, you know, sent your contact info. And it's just, I love that that's how that works here, you know, and I'm sure that you can pull from social media and different things, but there is still something to be said. Like, did you do Rick Elvis's logo?
My mom actually did the logo for him, but he has been a great customer. He has come in and gotten so many like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, signs, banners, all sorts of stuff. I see a sign like on before Chevron.
Yep. I ran into him the other day, sweatshirt. Like it's just cool to see that come to fruition,
Absolutely.
You know? And like
I love that about this area as well. Yeah. That's just one of the things that and my husband's like experiencing that now. He's realizing why, I guess, I wanted to move back here so bad, because he's experiencing that community and that small town, like, oh, so-and-so sent me.
Yeah.
And like, he's still figuring out who a lot of people are, whereas I've known them most of my life already. But it is amazing. Like the fact that word of mouth can make your business grow that quickly.
Well, and it sounds a little corny, but like, I love it. You know, I've had Tam Smith on the podcast, Small Batch Sourdough, and I know you guys have worked together a little bit, and just like seeing that loaf of bread in my house with the logo, you know, and it's like, I know people that had their hands on this. It's such a neat feeling. And people that I would call friends, people that I believe in, like, is, you know, your input, her input, your employees, her employee, like, and then that loaf of bread sits on my table. Like, it's such a neat feeling, you know, and I hope we get to continue to see more of that at this local level, you know. I'm excited for that. Like,
me too. I agree. And I feel the same way. It reminds me, even when I was a kid, like, I had appreciation for that stuff. Like, oh, I know who built that house, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, Troy Holland was over there working on that, or Larry Lickfold was working on this. He actually built a house for my parents. And like, just to know people, like you
There's
said,
a lot of pride in that.
Like, yeah, like, you know, you always have a guy to call whenever it comes to whatever it is you need. And my husband had that a lot back in Central Oregon with like his friends and the people he grew up with. And he knew a lot of people in the area, so that definitely helped. And I think moving here, he was nervous that that wasn't going to be an option anymore. But it was just like, oh, the roles are reversed. Now I know somebody. I can call somebody that I know, and I have somebody to help us with whatever, like pretty much any problem that you could be posed with, there's somebody who will help you.
Yeah.
And I feel like the best thing about this area is there are people who I definitely don't talk to on a daily basis, might not have talked to them in 5 years or 10 years, but I could call them tomorrow and I am confident that they would be there
For sure.
and help you. Like, there's just something to be said about that and about our community. And that's one of the biggest reasons I keep going back to it. But one of the biggest reasons I wanted to be here, because it's really special. And I think that it might not exist everywhere in the world.
Well, the connection is huge. Like I'm guilty as everyone probably is, but like we buy off Amazon. But the older I get and the more I realize how important small business is, how hard it is to earn $1 in small business, being in a small community, it's like, I feel pride when I walk into your store and say, these are my friends, and I'm supporting this business. And this is where my hard-earned money is now going to your business, which is working hard and tirelessly. And like, there's something there that just feels good that I can't really articulate or put into words. All I can say is I don't get that same feeling when I'm at Walmart or filling my Amazon cart.
I feel the same way. And it goes right back to Tam, actually. Like, that you're going to the store and you're supporting her small business because you're buying her loaf of bread instead of a loaf of Wonder Bread. Like, just knowing that there are places that you can go and you can support other small businesses. I feel the same way. I never had any like appreciation for that. In my younger years, I just was always looking for the cheapest route, the easiest route, the quickest route. Like, now I don't mind if I have to wait a little while for something, because I know firsthand how hard it is to produce something that somebody might need, and all of the work that goes into that. And so I find myself doing the same thing, like trying as hard as I can to support smaller businesses instead, because really, like, you're supporting your friends or somebody's friend. And it's just so important. And I don't know, it's crazy how like easy it is now. The world's really at our fingertips. You can get anything from anywhere, but the prideful feeling that you have going somewhere, like, I totally feel the same way. So it's cool to hear somebody else's outlook on that.
I don't think similar. I didn't always appreciate that and took it for granted, but like a few small examples, that maybe I didn't appreciate it until it was gone. But, like Macintosh's hardware, Heights, before it was Harvest Foods, Jim Thompson owning Chevron, which was Yellow Pine back in the day, like all of these little staples. And it was so neat to walk in and say, I know the owner of that store. And like, and I understand, how we've gotten away from that. But I think in these small communities, there's a ton of value of the locals, the people that live in the community, owning the main street, if you will, as a metaphor, and being the backbone of the community. And I was talking to your dad about this. Like, I'm just really hopeful that our generation can seize this opportunity. And these numbers, don't quote me on them, but around 90% of small businesses are owned by baby boomers, and they will be fully retired and out of the workforce by 2030. So there is about to be this transition happening. And then I think if you look on the mainstream political level, tariffs and whatever the hot topic is of the week, but I think we're all realizing that we kind of made a bed the last 30 years with outsourcing things to other countries and not being producers of our own stuff, that there's value in being able to make stuff here and be in business here, and so I'm really excited to see if we can't, in our generation, bring some of that back. Like, I grew up next to the Height family, and I spent most of my childhood in that grocery store. And my dad did with, my best friend was Andrew Height. My dad grew up with Andy Height, and, his parents owned Heights. But, so many hours in that store. And it was just like, that was part of the community. That's where we lived. And
absolutely,
it was so awesome. And I look forward to hopefully businesses like yourself and others popping up, and hopefully we can support that and keep that snowball getting bigger.
Yeah, I agree, especially because I feel like the best way to learn is to have somebody model by example for you. And I've seen a lot of younger generations like that just maybe don't have the work ethic. And so if there's any way to bring that back for them, like for them to see success at a different level or from a different perspective, maybe they will be inspired too. Because again, like with the media and everything, honestly, it's such a blessing and a curse. I feel like I just see, like, I don't know, no hate to influencers, because I love to watch influencers. Like I love to go down rabbit holes and watch their lives, and it sounds funny, but I love that. But also, like, I feel like that's getting away from like I don't know how to put it. I don't want to say like they're not working hard, because they definitely are putting a lot of thought into whatever it is they're working on and posting and whatnot. But like just getting away from the bones of I don't know. I can't think of a good term for it. I feel like,
well, and maybe some of like the staples and necessities, you know,
that's the word
like,
I was looking for, was staples.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that one thing that I really love about what you and Tam have done in the last couple of years is I'm a very like literal thinker. I'm, when it comes to business, I enjoy numbers, you know, like I love researching. Another way of what I'm saying on the other side of that sword is I'm not a huge risk taker. Like I like to plan, contingency plan, know the numbers, know that basically that if I do X, then success will be Y, you know, like,
Right.
And I think that's because I've come into my business differently, with kind of having a little bit of a nest egg where my grandfather started the business. My dad took it and basically made a whole new face with it, you know, in his 30 years. And now it's my opportunity. But I look at what you and Tam have done and I'm like, well, how would you ever research like that you can sell sourdough bread in Northport? You know, like you go to the library and research those demographics and numbers, and you can't really do that. Like same with, how do you sell vinyl wraps in Colville, Washington, or logos? And what I've gotten from both of you guys is just like, I'm going to carve it out, you know, like, and it's that roll up your sleeves. You know, I feel that it gets, you know, misused sometimes, but it's the word, the grind, you know, and when you say you're up till 2 a.m. and then up again at 5 and like grinding it out and not getting lost, I'd be completely the opposite of being like, I could find all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And then it would probably make me not do the thing.
Deter you from wanting to.
And then I see people like you and Tam that are like, I'm passionate about this and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I'm going to grind and put it to the world. And like, I love that you guys have proof of concept that works, because and I'm not taking anything away from you guys, but it's just that work ethic, that discipline, and that, you know, that positive stubbornness to see it through. And like,
that's a great way to put it, honestly.
But it's really encouraging and inspiring. And I hope that other people, and hopefully just through this platform, like can hear that and be inspired as well, of like, you're not going to ever have all the answers. You know, you didn't know when you decided to get that retail space next to your mom that was going to work or not. And I'm sure you still stay up some nights.
Don't. Yeah. I mean, I still don't even know what I'm doing 99% of the time, I would say. I am such a basket case. Like, it's really funny because I used to be so put together. Like I said, I graduated a year early. I had my shit together enough to pull off, I think it was like 6 credits I had to do between June and August. And like, I feel like I was very put together, very organized. I always had a plan. I always knew how things were going to go. And then for whatever reason, like I lost that along the way. And it has been pretty much just, well, let's see if this works and hope that it pans out. And it's the complete opposite of what my personality used to be. But also there's that, like you said, positive stubbornness. And I love that. I've never heard that, but that is a really great way to describe it. That I'm just kind of like, you know, we're just going to make it happen. We're going to make do and make the best of what we have and what we've been given and faced with. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something new.
I feel like that's what this country was built on, you know?
It's gotta be.
Yeah. And, I don't know. I love that. What in your time in business so far, what's one of the biggest struggles or hurdles that you faced or maybe continue to face?
Probably just honestly, and this may vary person to person, but like figuring out a balance, because one thing that my dad and I have talked recently a lot about business actually. And one thing that he's explained is like, with your jobs, the things that aren't making you as much that you're spending a lot of extra time on, yes, your profits are going up, but so are your expenses. Or I guess that wouldn't be the right way to put it, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You're making this money's coming in, but it's also going out
It's
because
kind
you're
of
having to
pass
buy
through income.
Right.
Yeah.
You're having to buy more things, or you're spending more time, and you could be spending that time making more money doing something else. And so just finding a balance between, what is going to be the heart of our business, what is going to make us all the money that we need to make to keep our doors open and keep serving the community and keep doing things like the way that we're doing things, and also being able to keep our sanity and not be 24/7 working, because realistically, like, what are you working for if you're not enjoying things in between? Not saying that's not how we are. Like, we definitely do get to enjoy a lot of things in life, but there's just this hustle that we're kind of in the middle of right now.
But there's no one that says you have to go home right now. And so it can eat you then.
Right. So like finding a balance, I would say, is definitely the hardest thing for me personally, is balancing my home life and my work life, and like trying to figure out what the best thing for my business and for myself is going to be, because I feel like it could also change. Things could be going really good in one direction and then just come to a head and be like, oh, well, that's not really doing anything anymore, and people don't really need this anymore. So you kind of have to shift your mindset a little bit here and there. Like, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say the balancing act is the biggest challenge for me when it comes to being a business owner.
For sure. What are you most excited about for the future?
That's a really good question. Truthfully, I haven't thought that much about it. I just I get excited about like different projects.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought too far ahead about what the future could even look like. I think I'm very focused in the now.
I think there's a lot of value in day to day and just being in the present, for sure. Would you mind just sharing with our listeners what all services you provide? And I don't know if we've mentioned it yet. I'll definitely do it in the intro, but your business name is Wicked Wild Designs. And so what all could, people in the community, what could they come to Wicked Wild Designs for?
So definitely any kind of indoor, outdoor signage, banners, vinyl wraps. So with that, like the vehicle fleets, so stickers, decals, logos, graphics, anything like that for vehicles and race cars, side by sides, quads, whatever. Anything you can wrap in vinyl, pretty much. Different custom apparel items, ranging from like t-shirts, sweatshirts to hats. We also do custom drinkware and magnets. I feel like I'm forgetting something, which is really silly to say, but we try to be a little bit of a one-stop shop. So we try to offer a lot of other extra promotional items, which I feel like kind of falls into the apparel or merchandise category. And we recently bought a laser engraver. It hasn't been like fully powered on yet. It turns on, but we haven't operated it yet. So we're kind of hoping to take some of our sign offerings to the next level and be able to offer different kinds of signage, whether it be for indoor or outdoor, and then be able to do different engraving projects and things like that. So I guess if you had to say what I'm looking forward to in the future, maybe that's it, being able to kind of broaden what we offer now.
Yeah. I feel too that if anyone was listening and they're not even sure if any of that meets what they're looking for, I feel like if they just came in and talked to you, like you're a very creative person and you could, like that, I didn't even know how to do a logo. I remember I came in 3 or 4 times just kind of talking to you about different things and this and that. And like Tiana's very knowledgeable and could, I think for me, she was able to get out of me what I didn't know I really had, and so like, if you even had a question, or if you said, hey, I just started a business, I maybe need a logo on my truck, or I want to get business cards out or t-shirts or what, I would just say swing in, because you are a wealth of knowledge, and there's always other stuff that you've done in there that then you can see. And I know that helped me, just seeing some of the other logos, hats, t-shirts, vinyls, whatever. So I would definitely say it's worthwhile to stop in if anyone in here is looking for any of those kind of services.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I definitely do my best, but again, I don't know if I'm a wealth of knowledge or anything like that. I just kind of go with the flow as much as I can and take things as they come.
I feel that you're very passionate about it and knowledgeable. Yeah. So I would definitely say that you're a wealth of information. And like I said, a guy like me, who I don't feel that I'm artistic, I didn't even really understand the value of branding or having a logo, because in my business as a contractor with Bureau of Reclamation, I'm not marketing really,
Right.
I'm just bidding these government contracts. So I didn't even really know what I needed or whatever. And I thought that you were very helpful in that process to help me with that.
Well, thank you. That's what I aim for. Yeah, I am super passionate about designing like branding packages, kind of like I talked about that a little bit in the beginning, but just seeing something from start to finish and being able to say like, oh, I had a part of that. Like somebody trusted me enough to be able to create that for them and kind of help them implement that into their business. And just having a brand, I feel like, is so important, because it just makes you easier to find, easier to access, right? If, like you said, the apparel, you wear your sweatshirts out a lot and people notice that, and then they're like curious about what you do. It's always an opportunity to generate more business. But as far as like the branding and branding packages go, that's probably where my passion stems from, because even when I worked at the print shop in my earlier days, like the first time I decided I wanted to be in graphic design was doing a logo, and being able to be excited about, oh, somebody's going to use something I created. So being able to like put that together with all of the things, the signs, the business cards, it just like makes me happy. It like does something to me that I love that feeling. And so
I'd have to imagine you feel like you're a little piece of that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's really exciting. Like it makes me feel really good to know that I can help somebody and they love it as much as I do. And it's so worth all of it, all of the craziness. Like I definitely feel fortunate to be in this position, like I've said already.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap up or close or anything?
I don't know. Not really. Kind of just came into this same as everything else. Just didn't know what to expect. But I mean, I did. I definitely have listened to your other episodes, but I was just excited.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time. Give the address. What's your address on Main Street?
It's 509 South Main Street.
Okay. And then you have a Facebook page?
Yep. I have Facebook that I'm partially active on, and Instagram that I'm even less active on.
Okay.
But both of those. And then we have a website that we just kind of got up and running. I just started actually focusing a little more on that and building custom stores for people to go in and be able to like set it up for a sports team or a small business, so that all of their players or employees or whatever can go on and access their designs and buy their merch just directly, so nobody else has to deal with the handling part of it, and I can just kind of take in all the orders and get them all shipped out, or people can pick them up or whatever. So we just started kind of working on the website too. So that's wickedwilddesigns.com.
Cool. And what's the best way, to reach out or contact you if people were looking to do like a logo package or something? Do you prefer walk-in, email, phone, or all the above?
All the above, honestly. I don't have a way that I prefer one way more than the other, I guess. I definitely enjoy meeting with people face to face, just because I feel like it gives me a better idea as to what they're looking for. Or like you said, I can kind of communicate a little bit easier. So if you send me an email or a message or even a text, because I have that option too, I like to try to set up a time to talk over the phone if I can't meet with somebody in person.
For sure. Cool. Yeah. And like I said, I've already said it, but I'll say it one more time. Like, swing into the shop. It's awesome. I think you'll be glad you did.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I say this to a lot of my guests, but I also look forward to having you back, maybe in 5 or 6 months, and talk about what's happened then and the growth of the business, and see if you guys have gone a different direction or this or that. I'm
for sure.
I'm excited
You'll have
to
to
hear.
let me come back to interview you, because I feel like your listeners would want to hear your whole life story.
Yeah.
And I know you get into that a little bit. Like in a lot of the episodes, you definitely put a little bit of like your personal touch in there and talk about your younger years and stuff, but it would be really cool to do that. And I've thought about that almost every time I've listened, like, man, somebody just needs to interview him so he can tell all of his stories too.
So I've thought about that in the terms of using this studio and just the Grange brand, if you will, is even something if maybe I'm not even in here, but just other people that would be a subject matter expert on something, or just, having a conversation that would add value to the community, And so that's definitely an idea I've kicked around, that I think would be cool too, of just kind of having the open door policy, if you will, to come in and have conversations that add value.
I love that idea, because I love what you're doing and like everything all the thought you've put into this. I think it's amazing, just because there are so many people who don't know a lot about other small businesses in the area, or just like the history of the area. Those have been like, your episode with Keith Miller has been one of my favorites, just to listen to him tell stories about all sorts of different people. Like, that is so cool to me. And maybe it's just because I'm very interested in local history and growing up here and stuff, but I think it's so important to come back to that. And like, I think it's cool that you're giving people that opportunity to learn in a more modern way than having to pick up a textbook and look at what happened 80 years ago. Like, they're actually able to hear somebody firsthand talk about it. And there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I'm definitely excited, and I feel a little sense of urgency with, the older folks in this community. The harsh reality is whenever they pass, a lot of the information and the stories that they have, well, then that's it. Go with them. And so I've been able to, even today, I made contact with 2 people that committed to come on that I think will be really good, that are in their 70s, that have vast knowledge of this area. And I guess a modern way to document the history of our area is something I'm excited for, and feeling that urgency. It's funny. It's probably 50-50 with people that I talk to that are over 65. 50% of them, I think, just because I know them and have a relationship, they're like, oh yeah, love to come on. And then the other 50 I still know very well, but they're like, I don't even know what a podcast is. Right. I've had, multiple people in that age demographic say, if I came on, I'd get thrown in jail. I don't want that to be used against me, which obviously wouldn't be my intent, but some of that's in play.
Those are the ones I really want to listen to.
Me too, for sure.
That's what I'm most curious about now.
But yeah, I'm excited for it. Like I said, I appreciate your words. It's funny, when I started this thing, I talked to you even before I started it. And that goes back to what I said, like what I admire about you and Tam, of like, I literally, whoever would listen to me, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, and so many people were like, you should. Yeah. And it really, like, I really appreciate that input from you and the others. And in the Keith Miller podcast, I was like, I had a goal written down 2 years ago to do this. And that's how long it took me. And a lot of that was fear. Like, once I decided and made up my mind, the studio was built in a month. The gear was here. I learned how to do it. Like, it shouldn't have taken me 2 years. It was just that little thing I have in my brain.
Yeah, that mindset. Mm-hmm. It definitely can do you dirty sometimes if you're having any kind of doubts. Like, I feel like it's really easy to get in your own head about things and not be sure of things, but it's good to put yourself out there also. Yeah. So I'm glad that you did, because I've really enjoyed listening, and I think it's cool that you've got all of these aspirations to bring all these other people on too. I hope that like it continues to grow for you, and I think that it will.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
This has been great. Thanks for coming on, and we'll do it again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tiana.